Deputy Police Commissioner Anthony Carter, both of you who provided update information regarding the case, and let it be known if there was any resources that they needed that you brought it to my attention. Since the discovery of the first victim, there's been a lot of scrutiny and criticism regarding how this investigation was handled. I will tell you this, the investigators were never discouraged. They continued and uncovered evidence and followed leads. You never stopped working and will continue to work tirelessly until we bring justice to all the families involved. Last but not least, I want to thank my predecessors that came before me, the work that they did. I want to thank them for really laying the foundation that helped us get to here today.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Brodak. I'm the FBI Special Agent in charge of the New York office's Criminal Division. The FBI expended its full set of resources in support of our local and state partners to advance this investigation. The charges show that we can overcome the most difficult challenges when federal, state, and local law enforcement work together under one task force. While nothing can fill the void caused by the loss of a loved one, through today's announcement, we are hopeful that the families of the victims begin to experience a sense of peace, closure, and justice, and that the general public feels safer knowing that an alleged killer is no longer roaming free. The actions taken today should serve as a reminder that the FBI, along with our law enforcement partners, will continue to be resolute in our determination to bring all offenders to justice, no matter how many years has passed. I would like to thank Suffolk County District Attorney Ray Tierney and his prosecution team, Suffolk County Police Commissioner Rodney Harrison and the Suffolk County Police Department, the New York State Police, and the investigators and staff of the FBI New York Field Office, including the Long Island Violent Crime Task Force. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. LD Toulon Jr. and I'm the Sheriff of Suffolk County. I would profoundly like to thank the District Attorney and the Police Commissioner for including me not only here today, but for including the Suffolk County Sheriff's Office and recognizing the importance of jail intelligence. It is extremely important when you realize that we created our human trafficking unit in 2018, that there are victims in our community, and that intelligence is being shared by many of the men and women who are incarcerated today. And we have seen many disjointed investigations occur, and leading up to the leadership of these two men have really brought everything together. I am proud that today we stand here a little bit closer to bringing closure to the families and extend my deepest condolences to all of you. Because of the nature of this case, and recognizing that human trafficking and corrections intelligence is so important, we realize that there are many other cases that are going on that we will help to solve going forward. So I thank my intelligence staff and team that are here today for their diligence and their work. While we did our part in this investigation, we continue because we have to house this individual. We have already designated or talked about certain locations where we will house him, and in addition, the security measures we will implement in our facility to make sure that this individual is brought to justice the way he should be. Thank you very much, and have a good day.
Good afternoon. I'm Colonel Richard Allen, the Field Commander with the State Police, and I want to start by expressing my sincere condolences to the family members that are here today. Although losing a loved one, you can never completely get rid of that pain, but hopefully these steps that are taken here today are a step in the right direction for you to start in the healing process or work through the healing process. I want to thank the members of the task force, all the agencies you see behind me. I When we were approached in 2022 to be part of this task force, we were fully engaged. Glad to be part of this. We assigned investigators on a full-time basis. You know, what you see being done here today is the end game of agencies working together, as was said before, with no egos, all egos put aside, with the sole mission to find justice for these victims. You know, here in Troop L, Major Stephen Eudas oversees the operations down here. He has been intricately involved in this task force since we became partners with it, and I'm going to ask him to come up and say a few words or expand upon this a little bit of our role in the task force.
Thank you, Colonel. Good afternoon. I'm Major Steve Eudas, New York State Police, Troop L, Long Island Troop Commander. I'd like to take this opportunity to start off by acknowledging the DA, Ray Tierney, and Commissioner Rodney Harrison for having the vision to see that forming a task force might breathe new light into this investigation. The state police were asked in early 2022 to join this task force, and once requested, we were more than willing to do so. We were also very pleased that we were able to make some very meaningful contributions in this case to help propel it forward. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of the task force members from the different agencies and congratulate them on a job well done. I think this case represents an example of what we as law enforcement can do when we pool our resources together and we work together. I would also like to mention the state police member assigned to this task force. You were provided with a mission, and that mission was to participate in this task force, put everything else that you were doing aside, place 100% of your attention on this case, and help push this case forward. You more than accomplished that mission. I congratulate you on a job well done, and I commend you for your outstanding work. To the families, I'd like to say that on behalf of myself and the New York State Police, we offer you our deepest condolences. We recognize that these crimes may have happened years ago, but that pain continues. Our hope is that this development today provides you with some relief and some comfort, knowing that the person responsible for your loved one's death is now being held accountable, and he's no longer a threat to anyone else in society. I want you to know, additionally, that the state police is not done here. We are remaining committed and will continue to support the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office, the Suffolk County Police Department, and this task force as we move into the next phase of this process. That's the prosecution. I would also like to say something to everyone watching this with us today. There's been a lot of discussion here today about charges, about the suspect, about what happened, but I would also like everybody to take the time to join with me and keep the families of the victims and the victims themselves in your thoughts and in your prayers. Each one of these victims was a family member and a loved one, and their void and their loss caused great pain, and they did not deserve this. Nobody is deserving of this. We hope this development today will bring some comfort to them as they move forward. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions?
DA, in court you said that the investigation had to be cut short at one point because of, I think you were fearing the defendant may flee, but more importantly, the safety of people in the community. Can you just explain that more here?
You know, sure. Before I do that, just I'm standing back there. I realized I didn't thank my own team. So I want to thank my chief investigator, Rick Zacharis, who is I'm so lucky to have. I want to thank Nick Santamartino, ADA Nick Santamartino, ADA Michelle Haddad, ADA Andrew Lee. I also want to thank my chief assistant, Alan Bodie, and I want to thank all of the incredible analysts that we have working for us at the Suffolk County DA's office. So, having said that, I will now answer your question. I think that there was a tension in the task force, and it was a good tension, because, there's a tension between getting the evidence necessary to charge somebody, but also keeping the public safe. And that's the tension that we always deal with. So as we were working forward, we had Suffolk County PD, we had the FBI surveilling the defendant. Obviously, that can't be all the time, but we were reasonably assured with that. But this individual was a person that continued to patronize sex workers at all hours of the night. He continued to use fictitious email addresses, fictitious identities, burner phones. And so as we worked through the case, and we got closer and closer, all of a sudden, and we built the evidence, suddenly the balance tips in favor of public safety. So, I think we all wanted as a task force to continue it, but I think collectively we felt that it was time to strike that balance and to take him off the street, so that's what we did.
DA, I see that you have some of the family members gathered here today. Could you introduce some of them, and if they wanted to say anything about the news of the...
I don't believe they, does anybody want to say anything? No, they're here, I can tell you they're the Waterman, Barthelemy, and Brainerd Barnes family members, but they're here first and foremost to support their loved ones, and we're happy and grateful to have them here.
Are you looking at any other people? Do you believe that there are multiple people responsible for the remains for the murders at Gilgo Beach?
This portion had to deal with the deaths of these 4 young women, and that's what we focused on. That was what the grand jury investigation was focused on. I talked about the commonalities, and the commonalities, all of those commonalities that we talked to were unique to these 4 separate cases. So that's what we're working on. I think the other members of the task force said, we're going to continue, and continue to work and investigate and try to get a small measure of closure for all the victims' families. But for right now, this defendant, it's this defendant with these 4 victims.
Do you
The other
anticipate
remains,
charges
is there
coming
any
from the fourth?
relationship between the person, Heuermann, and the other remains, other than the 4 women?
I'm here to talk about what we did with regard to these 4 victims, and as I opened my address by talking about the need to maintain investigative secrecy. So we are going to maintain that investigative secrecy, and when I talk about other individuals and other cases, it will be after they have handcuffs on.
Ray, you mentioned that there was a New York State officer made the link with Heuermann. He looked at data, and that's when Heuermann came up shortly after the task force. Can you explain that? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
So, I mean, we talked about some of the evidence that was there. Obviously the that phone evidence was great evidence. And then there were other commonalities, there were other investigations, but I think one of the good things about having a task force is basically you strip it all down. And you start from scratch, and then you use the DA's office, because the DA's office has to get you, the lifeblood of an investigation is information. And the way you get information on a cold case is the district attorney's office issues subpoenas in conjunction with the investigators and execute search warrants, again, in conjunction with the investigators. And then you mine all that data, and then you let that data take you where you need to go. So that's what we did in this case. And 6 weeks in, the break in the case, a significant break in the case, was the avalanche and the fact that this guy, he was described by witnesses as an ogre. He matched the description of the ogre and where he lived.
Was the avalanche the link there? Was that what jumped out?
Well, I mean, it was a lot of things, right? It was his physical size. It was his where he lived, where he worked, the fact that his family members were out of the country at the time of the commission of the 3 murders, the fact that he now then you start looking into him, and then you start getting burner phones. Well, we had up to 7 burner phones. He's using these fictitious email addresses. So then you follow him and you get an abandonment sample. then you go back to some of the old evidence. So it's, you know, there are, I mean, March 14th, 2022 was a huge day for the task force, but, you know, it's never one piece of evidence.
What kind of database did his name come up in? You said that his name came
Well,
up.
there's like what they'll call lawman searches, and basically what it is you run a certain make and model of a car and certain other, you know, where you live or what you do for a living, and then you get data, and then you mine that data for something that would match with your case. And you do that. You don't do that just, you know, you do that 100 times, you know, until it hits, until you get the right data points.
Did the suspect say anything when he was arrested? Was he surprised? Did he admit to the murders?
So we can't talk about ethically in New York. We can't talk about any statements the defendant made, but he, you know, he made. We're not turning over any statements.
Was he surprised?
I would say he was. Yeah.
You mentioned a unique feature that helped you track down the Chevy Avalanche.
Yeah. So that in between the bed and the cab, there's like a little triangular ornament almost, and it's unique in the way it's configured. It's unique to the Avalanche. It was unique to the Avalanche at that time, and that was something that was pointed out by witnesses.
Might there be other victims
What?
associated with this?
Well, you know, the investigation is continuing, and I would never say never. And we're gonna continue to look at, again, now, this is a watershed event in this case. And so we've now, are going out and we're executing more search warrants. We'll get more information, more data, and, you know, together, we'll look at that and see where it leads.
Can you share how the other victims' families are feeling today?
I'm sorry?
Did you speak to the other victims' families? Did they tell you how they're feeling today?
Which, so this investigation had to do with these 4 victims. So we've been in touch with the 4 victims through the grand jury process. With regard to victims in general and other victims, you know, who lost people in the vicinity of that area, you know, we speak to our victims all the time, but those are conversations that we keep between ourselves.
The
Can you
grand jury
explain why
was in
you
panel.
have one victim that has not been linked to the charges to this suspect at this point?
So, you know, so first off, Maureen Brainerd Barnes, the other 3, one went missing in 2009, I believe the others in 2010. She was in 2007, so it was a little bit more remote in time. We are working through evidence. A lot of that evidence has to do with forensic evidence and analyses that are not completed. But once those analyses are completed, we feel good about the case, and we're going to just continue to let that process go. And again, I think the initial plan was to allow the grand jury investigation to go a little further, but at a certain time, again, the task force felt, you know, we need to, for reasons having nothing to do with the evidence in the case, we need to take it down.
And Shane, can you just sum up this you've seen a lot, can you just sum up this defendant and what he is accused of?
You know, he's, you know, as a prosecutor and as investigators, you know, he is charged with a crime. There are certain elements in which we need to prove that crime. We are going to prove those elements. We're gonna work hard. We're going to convict him, and we're going to hold him responsible for what he did. And whether, you know, what I think of him personally, whether I like him, whether I don't like him, doesn't matter. We are going to hold him responsible for what he did in this case.
When was the grand jury in panel, and is it concluded?
The grand jury is, it's secret, and we're gonna keep it secret. But we have an investigation, and it is continuing.
There was a belt that was presented to the publicly by the Suffolk County Police Department a few years ago with initials on it. I think one of the initials could be MW, MH or WH or something along those lines. Obviously, this guy's got an H in his name.
Sure does.
Can you talk about that?
I mean, you know, he has an H in his name. He has, so it's, what was it, HM?
Or
Or WH? Yeah, so he's got an H in his name and other other relatives in his family have a W in their name. What that means, I don't know.
And can you talk about alleged why? The alleged motive, why?
I think that when you look at his internet searches, you know, I think that provides a little insight into his state of mind. And again, we don't have to prove motive, we have to prove the elements, and that's what we're gonna do.
You said that he was continuing to patronize sex workers until recently. How did you guys feel comfortable ensuring that you weren't, you know, putting these women at risk given this type of
Well,
history?
You know, you said women. You know, with regard to the sex workers, what we did was we had him under surveillance. We had other means of monitoring him, and again, it's a process, and that process is you have to balance the ability to find enough evidence to charge him and hold him responsible with the balance of keeping the public safe. And it's not easy, and we decided at a certain point in time that that we needed to take him down because we didn't feel comfortable with it, so that's what we did.
Did the frequency of his searches or the type of his searches increase to cause you alarm?
I don't think it was so much. I don't think it was so much the searches. I think that the conduct of the defendant was very consistent. I think, but the quality of our evidence was increasing by the day, by the moment, due to the great work of our task force partners. So at a certain point in time, we're like, okay, you know, we can do this.
Was there a murder weapon, or was this all by physical force?
I believe the cause of death is homicidal violence. Obviously, given the length of time and the exposure to a very harsh environment, forensically there was not not a lot that could be done with the remains, other than come to that conclusion.
Did he own 92 guns? It was said at the arraignment that he had a license to have 92 guns.
He has permits for 92 guns. He has a very large safe in which guns are kept. We are continuing to execute search warrants, so I'm sure we'll have that answer shortly.
There's quite a large gap between when he last abandoned and his arrest. Is there any concern that he committed any other crimes in that time period before the task force was set up?
I'm sorry?
Is there any concern that obviously he last was known to commit a crime in 2010 and it's now 2013? The task force was set up in 2022. That's quite a large gap. Is there any concern he committed?
I think there's always concerns. I think, you know, I got into office in January 22. We worked with our partners. We had our first meeting February 1st, and we worked, and you know, March 14th was really that watershed day. And when I tell you, you know, I'd like to brag and say that my office was really working hard, which we were, but no other agency was working any less hard than we were. Once we realized what we had and we realized the stakes, all of our partners really worked. I mean, I think if you look at the folks standing here, I don't think that, you know, in the last 48 hours, any of us have gotten more than 3 hours sleep.
Regarding Maureen Bernard-Barnes, how much more do you need to actually tie it into that?
We are going to continue our investigation, and when we are prepared, when we have concluded that investigation, we will, you know, we'll bring that to a conclusion, but we will not do it before.
Between all the
thank
search,
you. You have one more?
yeah, between all the search warrants and the subpoenas, were you ever like, do you ever think that you were gonna lose them? Like, you know, reading between all the searching around and stuff, like?
You know, and I don't want to tell you, you know, exact investigative techniques, because they're, you know, again, part of the reasons why they're effective is because people don't necessarily know what it is exactly we do. But always a concern, but given the professionalism of our partners, their diligence and their commitment, we felt good about the case, or keeping the case going until we didn't, and then we took it down.
Thank you.
Thank you, thanks, guys.
and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna check out. Are you understanding what I'm saying? And if you agree with what I'm saying, then you got it.
Here a second.
Yeah.
No.